In an episode that quickly spiraled from discussion to drama, tension erupted on The View between two of its most outspoken co-hosts, Behar and Rosie O'Donnell. It began innocently enough with a debate about billionaires and their growing influence in politics, climate initiatives, and society at large. Rosie, never one to mince words, launched into a passionate critique of the ultra-wealthy, arguing that billionaires were more interested in space tourism than saving the planet. She declared that the system was rigged, and billionaires were its greatest beneficiaries. Behar, often the comic relief, but also fiercely opinionated, pushed back. She argued that not all billionaires were the same, and that some were genuinely investing in innovation and green energy. Her tone was sharp, but she seemed to advocate for a more nuanced take. Rosie clearly didn't agree with Dot. Rosie fired back with sarcasm and fire, accusing Joy of defending the wealthy elite. She claimed philanthropy was just PR with tax breaks, and dismissed Joy's points as overly optimistic. Joy, in turn, accused Rosie of being overly cynical, of turning every issue into a villain versus hero battle. As the discussion intensified, the audience sat in uneasy silence, unsure whether to laugh or gasp. Rosie, visibly irritated, said Joy was smarter than to fall for billionaire propaganda. Joy snapped back, suggesting Rosie was just more bitter than usual, and asked sarcastically if Elon Musk had run over her cat. From there, the tone shifted from debate to personal. Rosie accused Joy of confusing passion with a tantrum, and made a pointed remark about how strong women were only tolerated when they were funny. Joy's comeback was quick. "Well, thank God I'm both." That one-liner drew laughter, but the atmosphere remained tense. The segment ended without resolution, but the internet had already exploded with clips, commentary, and speculation about whether this clash marked a deeper rift between the two outspoken hosts. It wasn't the first time The View saw fireworks at the table, but this confrontation between Joy and Rosie quickly became one of the most talked about moments in the show's history. As the air thickened with tension, neither Joy nor Rosie seemed ready to back down. The other co-hosts, normally quick to interject, remained unusually quiet, their eyes darting between the two, as if watching a verbal tennis match with no clear winner. Rosie leaned slightly forward in her chair, her tone now calmer, but colder. "So, we're laughing now, Joy. That's the play. Mock the anger. Turn it into a punchline." Joy raised her eyebrows. "I'm not mocking anger, Rosie. I'm mocking you because every time someone disagrees with you, you act like it's a betrayal." Rosie smirked, but her eyes were sharp. "No, Joy. I act like it matters. Maybe that's the difference. I'm not here to make things palatable. I'm here to tell the truth." Joy crossed her arms. "There's a difference between telling the truth and steamrolling people. You don't just speak truth to power, you shout it at everyone until they stop listening." At that point, Sunny Hostin cautiously stepped in, attempting to mediate. "Ladies, maybe we can all agree the system has flaws." But Rosie raised her hand slightly, not to interrupt Sunny, but to signal she wasn't finished. "No, I think we don't agree. And that's the problem. Because while we sit here, debating nuance, millions of people are drowning in debt, working 2 jobs, and watching the same billionaires. We shouldn't generalize by their 5th yacht." Joy leaned in, lowering her voice, but making her words count. "And if we just yell at them on daytime TV, is that going to change anything, Rosie? Or is it just going to give people a reason to tune out?" Rosie looked at her, long and hard. Better they tune out than be spoon-fed a lie in a friendly tone. That statement hung in the air. For a moment, it felt like the show had drifted out of daytime TV and into something raw, unfiltered, comfortably real. The audience didn't clap, they didn't laugh. They waited, and Joy, after a brief pause, said simply, "You're exhausting, Rosie." Smiled faintly, like someone who had heard that 100 times before. "And you're comfortable. That's even worse." At that point, the moderator awkwardly signaled for a commercial break. The screen faded, but the silence on set lingered longer than the cameras rolled. Before the commercial break could officially cut in, Rosie leaned back in her chair, still facing Joy. She hadn't broken eye contact. The moderator's voice in her earpiece was faint, and she clearly wasn't listening. "Go ahead," Rosie said flatly. Cut to a Swiffer ad. "God forbid we finish a real conversation." Joy gave a dry laugh, unamused. "You think you're the only one having real conversations, Rosie. That's your whole brand, righteous anger. But people don't need more yelling. They need solutions." Rosie turned toward the camera for a moment, then back to Joy. "You know what's tiring? watching smart women defend the status quo because it's easier to keep their seat at the table. Joy sat up straighter. I've earned my seat. I've been at this table since before you were throwing bar stools on your talk show. That landed like a punch. Rosie's eyes narrowed. Wow, low blow. And inaccurate. I didn't throw a bar stoolie. Walked away from a system that tried to silence me. Joy's voice was colder now, sharper. You walked away because you couldn't handle anyone pushing back. You think you're always the rebel in the story, Rosie, but sometimes you're just the loudest one in the room. The studio audience stirred, a few gasps. One nervous laugh. No applause. Rosie's face barely moved, her jaw clenched, her tone even. And you think sarcasm is courage. But let me tell you, Joy mocking people who care. That's not bravery. That's cowardice. In makeup, Joy opened her mouth to respond. But at that moment, the show's producer's voice could be heard faintly over the studio speakers. Something that almost never happened during live recording. Ladies, cut. We're going to break. Still, the cameras kept rolling for just a few more seconds. Joy and Rosie remained locked in silence, neither looking away. The other hosts were frozen, awkwardly stiff, unsure of whether to step in or step back, and then finally blackout. The blackout never came. A technical delay kept the feed live for a few more seconds than planned. The theme music didn't play. The screen didn't fade. Viewers at home were still watching. Rosie leaned in slightly, her voice lower now, but still audible to the mic. You know they're not going to air this, right? She said without breaking eye contact. They'll chop it, clean it up, pretend we were having a spirited exchange. Joy crossed her arms. Maybe they should. Not everyone wants to watch a meltdown at 11 in the morning. Oh, so now it's a meltdown, Rosie replied. Because I don't smile while making everyone comfortable. From the edge of the panel, Sunny Hostin finally spoke again, her voice tentative, but clear. Can we just for 1 second acknowledge that maybe both of you are right about something? There's a system. There's hypocrisy. But the screaming isn't helping either. Neither Joy nor Rosie turned toward her. Rosie gestured lightly with her hand, still watching Joy. I'm not screaming. Joy raised an eyebrow. You don't have to scream. You carry a foghorn everywhere you go. The audience reacted, more laughter this time, but nervous, unsure. Then Sarah End, clearly uncomfortable, tried to lighten the air. Maybe we should pivot to something safer, like, I don't know, ... volcanoes, or haunted dolls. Rosie finally looked away from Joy, just briefly, and offered a short laugh, dry and joyless. I'm sure haunted dolls have more accountability than most CEOs. A chuckle rippled through the studio. Joy, still tense, but with a practiced smile, leaned forward toward her mug of coffee. Well, Rosie, when you're ready to run for president, let me know. I'll be the one heckling you from the back row. Rosie gave a slight nod, her tone still edged. Only if you promise not to sell tickets. Just then, a flashing red light on the teleprompter signaled the real commercial break was finally engaging. The stage manager gestured urgently from behind the camera, mouthing, NOW. Theme music rose too loud, too fast, almost as if trying to erase the moment. But no one moved. Joy stirred her coffee. Rosie stared at the table. The audience clapped on cue. But the applause was awkward, forced. No one on the panel smiled. And the feed finally faded to black. The music ended. The studio went dim. Rosie stayed seated. Joy didn't move. A stagehand rushed over, whispering something, but neither woman reacted. Sunny reached for her water. Her hands were slightly shaking. Sarah glanced off stage, mouthing, Are we still live? No answer came. Rosie leaned back, arms crossed. Joy sipped her coffee. Eyes forward. Silence. Not tension any. More just wait. The kind of silence that says nothing's over yet. And then, faintly, someone backstage. Back in 30 seconds. No. One breathed,